are listening to the 4-7 Podcast, the podcast where two normal guys interview and reminisce about their favorite Christian artists from the 90s and today. Hey guys, how you doing? This is Mike here with Mr. R.J. Woods. This is the 4-7 Podcast. We have a special guest today, Mr. Jeremy Holderfield. And not Holyfield, like the boxer, Evander Holyfield. Holderfield. We have the guitarist here over from Seventh Day Slumber. How's it going today, Jeremy?
Fantastic, man. Thanks for having me part of this.
Listen, we are thrilled. We already got the gelling going on. I'm not talking about the gelling that's in the shoes. I'm talking about the gelling going on. Listen, it's always a good sign when the guest likes Bride. I'll tell you right now, if you guys don't know who Bride is, you guys, my RJ over here. But if you don't know who Bride is, you have not lived life. Just say it right now. I'm just gonna say it.
Not as a Christian rock fan, you have not lived.
Absolutely.
I will look it up as soon as we are done with the podcast, and I will listen to it, and I will report back next podcast. All right.
I can 90s Christian rock out with anybody. So
trust me, this could be a very long podcast because I love anything from Bride to White Cross, even Michael W. Smith to the Supertones, even like those tooth and nail bands like Dogwood. All I could go on and on and on, but this is not about me. This is about you, Jeremy, over here.
So you are a busy man. You're a guitarist. I think you've done booking. You're a husband. You're a father. You're a producer. You're doing a ton of stuff over the years. But let's start at the very beginning. Where'd you grow up? What was it like growing up where you were, and how'd you get into music?
Man, I'm from Jasper, Alabama, and whenever I tell people that, I've had several people say, "Hey, man, I've been through there or I've heard of it," but nobody's ever been there, like been to Jasper for any reason. They don't go there. They're like, "Yeah, I passed it, and I'm glad I didn't stop." I'm kidding. Jasper's it's like a little town. It was an old coal mining community in Alabama, and dude, grew up in church. It's whenever you're in those small communities, you know everybody, man. So you grow up with all the same kids in school, and you go to church with them, and that's where I grew up doing that. And so whenever I got into, I sang at this with my sister, if you can believe that. I sang with my sister at this talent show at high school when I was in ninth grade. And this rock and roll band that was in the school, they heard me sing, and they were like, "Hey, man, you got a great voice. You want to sing for us?" And I was like, "Yeah, I want to be." So I started like singing with them, and really went to this Billy Graham crusade, and really God spoke to me. I was like, hey, I was 14 at this point, and I was like, he basically told me, "I gave you this gift, whatever gift you have, I gave it to you for a different reason than just going out and singing about nothing." So I quit that band and started like a little side band, like a small Christian band with one of my best friends in the world that taught me how to play guitar. And I didn't know how to play guitar at the time. He was just like, we started playing together, and he would play guitar and I would sing, and we didn't know any other Christian musicians. So it was just me and him, and we had a little drum machine that we would play along with, and it was terrible. No, that's how it started, man. Like 3 years of doing that, just he and I doing small shows at churches here and there in the area. And, finally I was just like, hey, I found this other band that I moved that were about an hour away from where I grew up, and they a Christian band, and we moved to Nashville with that band back in 2000 and or 2001 maybe. And that was a really rough year, man. Moving from, we all had like our friends, our family, our home, and we had support. We had a small fan base, and just thought, man, if we move to Nashville and get in front of the right people, we'll get a record deal and we'll be set. And, it doesn't work like that. So, we were just super naive, man. And that first year up was really super tough. My parents were going through a divorce, and I was just trying to figure out what's going on with life. So I was really struggling my first year in Nashville. It was like everything was against you. You didn't have anything going for you. You're starting a new thing, in a place where you have no support. Your parents are going through a divorce, and you went from making a lot of money at your day job in Jasper, Alabama, to not making hardly anything, and just like living off of. I was literally eating tuna fish out of a can for like a week and a half, and got down to eating grilled cheese sandwiches, and started like falling asleep at work. And I was like, I don't have any energy. And then I told my mom, and she was like, what are you eating? And I told her, she's like, well, you're not getting any like real protein or anything. You're just eating grilled cheese sandwiches for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It was the cheapest thing I could do at the time because I didn't know about ramen noodles. It would have probably been way worse for me. But man, I went through that whole starving artist thing, in Nashville for about 9 months. And it sucked really, really bad, really hard. And I learned a lot. And but those songs in that band, they were all about, I wrote all the songs in that band, and they were all, at that point I was playing guitar because I was better at guitar than I was at singing. I still am better at guitar than singing. But all the songs were about how upset I was at my dad. They were all about how much I hated my dad for, leaving my mom and that divorce thing. And it was just really, we moved up there as a Christian band, but the songs just kept creeping further away. I mean, it was real life, but I was in such a dark place that there was no hope in the songs, and that was a real rough time in my life, man. And I'm giving you guys a real overview here, but I remember I still had to have a day job, right? Because nobody comes to Nashville and is just like, hey, I'm living the big life as an unsigned artist. So I was working a day job, and I was working at Target, and I quit my job there.
First of all, me and my family, we call it Target. Upscale Walmart, my friend.
Dude, when you've been working there in that time of your life, there's nothing fancy about it. I literally couldn't go to a Target for about 2 or 3 years after that
happened to me. I worked at Walmart. I couldn't go for a while.
I hated it so much, man. And I lied on my application because I couldn't afford to live off of like the normal hourly wage. I was like, I want to be a manager. But to be a manager there, they were like, you have to have a degree. And I dropped out of college. So I was like, yeah, I got a degree. I'm not proud of this. I'm telling you guys a lot.
Yeah, I dropped out too, so I don't feel so bad.
Well, it's like, hey man, I don't feel bad about dropping out. I feel bad about lying on my application. But I got the job as a manager there, like not the store manager, but department running. And it was like the third time I was going to be late, and they were going to do some sort of, I don't know, dock my pay a certain amount, or I don't know what it was, but I just didn't go into work. I was like, forget it. And I found this job at a car lot, and I saw that they were going to pay like $350 a week, no matter what. Right. So I'm like, well, I need $350 a week. I'll take it. So I went and, to go to take this job at this car lot. And the first day I'm there, I mean, I've already told you guys how bad of a time I was having while I was on a serious note, like I was having a bad problem with alcohol because I was so depressed. And there was nothing about my life that felt like it was going right.
Yeah.
I was broke. My parents were divorcing or divorced at that time, and I hated myself. I hated my dad. I couldn't talk to my mom because my mom was going through so much. And I knew that if I talked to her, that she was going to bring up all the stuff she was going through, and I couldn't help her. I'm like, I'm in such a terrible place myself. I can't help you. And so I would, I haven't even really discussed that with her. I've told people this before, but I kind of dodged my mom's phone calls and didn't call her because I couldn't mentally or emotionally take what was going to happen on the phone call, and because I was going through so much stuff. But so it was literally like the darkest time of my life, you know. And I remember sitting in that car lot, man, and they had this 2-story used car building, right? And I'm sitting in the second floor of it, just waiting on this little intro class to start or whatever. And my to add insult to injury, let me back up just a little bit more too. I was engaged when I moved to Nashville, and this chick that I was engaged to cheated on me while I was after about 3 or 4 months of me being there. I found out she's cheating on me.
Oh,
so that was like another kick, you know, while you're down. And so I was just, everything was bleak at that point. And I'm sitting there at this car lot, right? And I hear the ding of the elevator, and I look over, and this amazingly hot chick walks out of the elevator, and I swear it's like,
is that my wife? My wife was in the elevator?
It probably looks like your wife, but it was not her. It was literally like, you know, beams of light coming out from behind her.
Yeah.
I swear I saw it, and she's got this gorgeous red curly hair, and I'm just like, man, this girl is an angel. That's all I could think of. Is all I wanted to do that morning was sit next to her. I just wanted to be close to her. And so, of course, you know, I'm smooth, so I sit down next to her, and we get to talking, and I asked her out, you know, that day, and she turned me down. I asked her out a couple of times. She turned me down, but she did tell me that she had moved to Nashville to be around her brother-in-law and her sister. And her brother-in-law is the lead singer of Seventh Day Slumber.
Now it's coming together.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know who Seventh Day Slumber is, and at this point, I'd not told her I was part of a band, because everybody in Nashville is in a band, right? Everybody. So I'm just like, if I tell her I'm in a band, she's gonna think I'm trying to use that to, like, you know, hit on her or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I'm in a band too, and it's actually a Christian rock band. I was like, you know, I could tell she was like such a great person just from talking to her. I was like, I don't want her to know what I've been going through, what I've been dealing with. I want her to know the person I'm supposed to be. So, you know, obviously I put my best foot forward and left a lot of holes in the story. But man, you know, we ended up dating, and she's my wife now.
That's awesome.
We've been married for 18 years.
Congrats.
And, but man, God placed us in the right place to cross paths. And we got married in under a year. It was like a 9 or 10 months, something like that we got married after we had met. But there's not been a moment that went by in my life where I thought, did I make a wrong decision, you know? And she's how I met the band, you know, her. But she's really, without her, man, I don't know where I would have been. You know, who knows what I would have become of me because of the shape that I was in at that point. And I don't know what God would have done after that, but it is 100% God that put us together, and 100% God that I was part of Seventh Day Slumber, you know, that I'm part of that story. And, you know, after they asked me to come out on the road and play with them, you know, because they needed a guitar player, and I was still in my other band. So I did that for 4 months. We were touring.
Now, what year was that when they asked you to join the band?
It was 2000. I want to say it was 2002.
Okay.
2002, like January. Like they called me up and they were like, "Hey man, we really need a guitar player for this tour we're doing." I'm like, "Dude, my band's not doing anything right now, so I'd love to do it. When does it start?" And they were like, "Oh, in 2 days." So I'm like, great. So I learned all their songs in 2 days and went out on the road, and we toured with GS Megaphone and
GS Megaphone. I haven't heard that in a long time.
Well, sidebar, GS Megaphone, you got to get on Facebook and try to follow the guys, because they're doing another album, I think.
Are they really? Because
Yeah.
the last one they did was probably 10 years ago.
I don't remember when the last one was, but I know they're all great guys. And when I saw that, I was like, "Oh, that's just cool, man."
I remember his like awesome, like kind of like a deep voice he had. I've heard that in a long time.
Yeah, so there's some excitement there. I'm not giving anything away. They said it on their Facebook pages.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean that was a great tour, man, that we did. And after about 4 months of that, and seeing, like, you know, the first day that I was on tour with him, you know, we were having a Bible study, and I kind of just broke down, and I was like, guys, this is what all I'm dealing with, and you may not know that I'm dealing with this, but this is what I'm dealing with. And they were all just like, bro, first of all, we could all tell you we're dealing with something, and it's all good. We're going to pray you through this, man. And so the first 4 months of that time in the band was really just like a healing process for me. And, you know, I hated my dad at that point. I didn't talk to my dad for 2 years after he told me he was leaving my mother. 2 years I didn't speak to him. I didn't invite him to my wedding, which I'm not proud of, but that's just where I was at the time, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And
how did he take that?
Do what? Oh, how did he take it? You know, I haven't really ever asked him what he thought, you know, about missing the wedding. I think he knows that, you know, whenever, before I get to that, I'll tell you, with him, like, I had so much unforgiveness in my heart for that situation and bitterness that it was literally like, you know, if you guys were bitter towards each other and you were so angry at each other, it doesn't just affect him or you, right? It's affecting everything in your life. It starts into every part of your life. And that's what it was doing with me. I was like doing so well in all these other things, but this bitterness at my father was like holding me back in all these other areas. But, you know, not to even speak of how it was holding me back with my relationship with him. So I started just praying, God, I forgive him. I forgive my father. And I didn't mean it. You know, I didn't believe it. I didn't mean it, but I was saying the words because I knew that I had to just start somewhere. Mm-hmm. And those prayers, I don't know. I don't remember how long it went on like that, but eventually it turned into I forgive him. And it was a real thing. It was like all of a sudden I felt like it was an overnight thing where I legitimately was like, I forgive him, you know? And I think it was maybe just growing on my part and realizing that, you know, any one of us is capable of making dumb mistakes. And I would hope that if I make a really dumb mistake, people in my life would give me a second chance, you know, or a third chance or a fourth chance. But that's the way it went down, man. Is I finally invited him to come out to a concert we had in Alabama, and he came out. And I just told him, I was like, Dad, this, you know, this is all the stuff I've been through over the last 2 years and all the bad stuff. And I laid it on him. I was like, I feel like if you hadn't have done what you had done, then I wouldn't have gone through this stuff. And I said, but I forgive you. And I know that I could easily make those same mistakes. And I know that it'll never be the same. Our relationship will never be the same, but it can be good again. It can be
going through that with your parents. What kind of an effect did it have on your marriage? Because obviously you were probably married after that, but so kind of a short story. I used to be a wedding photographer, and the one thing that I always found was that couples whose parents are divorced usually get divorced because that's what they learn. They learn how to deal with problems the way their parents dealt with problems, and usually they didn't deal with them well because they got divorced. Now, obviously, you're not divorced, but how did seeing your parents' issues growing up ultimately get divorced? Did that have an effect on your marriage?
It did. I mean, it definitely affected it at the beginning, and all I can say to that is, you know, it affected my wife in a huge way. My wife is much probably like your guys' wives if you're both married, but my wife is so much better than me, right?
Yes.
And she's a rock. And I mean, she would never tell you that she's a rock, but for me, she was a rock. She's always been the level-headed one. If I got mad about something or was pissed off about such and such, she's always been the voice of reason. It'd be like, well, look, you just need to pray about it. And she's always she always errs on the side of forgiveness first, and so that's just who she is. Like it's second nature, where it's not second nature for me and I want it to be, it is for her. Like she's just automatic, and that's why everybody likes her better than me. And that's good. That's fine. I want people to like her, more than me, because she's just amazing. And I think with her, she put up with a bunch of stuff from me emotionally, just with me being kind of where I was at. She was able to stay strong through that and encourage me. She never got down on me about not talking to my dad. She understood, and she just loved me through the whole thing. The whole time, she loved me through it. And to me, it's not sneaky, but she would tell me, after I went through something and got it all resolved later on, she'd be like, I've been praying for you about that. And like, I knew that you needed that prayer, and I've just been praying that God would do something for you for that. And it happened. So whenever she would say stuff like that, I'm like, geez, you're like, that's what a woman of God does, man.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And she would never tell me, she'd never tell me, hey, Jeremy, I'm praying for you for that. She would just do it on her own, man. And, so I know that God hears her more than me. So I don't know.
No, I appreciate what you're saying, because your wife reminds me a lot of my wife. I'm Italian, so we chew on leather, our foot, all the time. So I'll say something, then think about it. Oh crap, I shouldn't have said that. Where my wife would be quiet, and then when she says something, it's like, wow, that's what it means. That's what it sounds like when you actually think about something.
Yeah.
And then my wife is like, honestly, I look at my wife and I say, wow, God,
yeah,
you give me most inspirational woman ever. Like I see her serving at church, and it encouraged me to serve our church. And I'm like, April, we need to reverse the roles. I need to be encouraging you. But I'm so thankful that my wife is such an amazing person that she loves God. She loves people. She wants to serve. She wants to see better. She loves listen, if you're a guy and you're not marrying up, that's a problem.
Yeah.
I married up, I'll tell you right now. I always tell my wife, if she was an animal, she'd be a fox.
Yeah.
Gosh, I would assume all three of us are in that same position. But your life obviously has gone from, you mentioned moving to Nashville, kind of being at a really low point, and then slowly in the process getting a wife and a job from the same person, and starting to heal. The first album I think that you were a part of would have been 05, right? With that,
actually, Picking Up the Pieces was the first album. That wasn't 05, would have been Once Upon a Shattered Life, I think.
Well, Picking Up the Pieces was Picking Up the Pieces.
It was
05 in September of it was a re-release. Once Upon a Shattered Life was February of 05. Yeah.
Yeah. So Picking Up the Pieces was before that, and that was like the first 4 months I was in the band. They were kind of writing for that, and I was like, at that point I wasn't even a member of the band, but I was like, hey, I want to help write too. So I helped write a couple of the songs, 2 or 3 of the songs, and I wrote the title cut on the album. But after those 4 months and seeing what Seventh Day Slumber was doing in concert, like with the ministry and seeing people give their lives to Jesus, hearing Joseph's testimony, and just going through all that healing. After I remember it was in April, I was helping them record their album. Actually, I was in the studio. I was, tracking all the guitars, and we went to lunch one day, and I just told them, I was like, guys, I know that I'm just like filling in until you find your guitar player, but I really feel like God has opened this door for me to be part of this band, and I really want to be a member of the band. And they were like, dude, it's on, you're in.
That's awesome.
It was that fast, and that was really like, at that point, I was always jealous when they talk about trying out other guitar players. I'm like, dang, I want to be the guitar player. So I finally just spoke up, and that's what they were wanting to begin with, and but yeah, man, that Picking Up the Pieces album was really special, man. We did that with no producer. Michael O'Mardian is listed as a producer, I guess, the executive producer, but he was never there for that. We just recorded that with an engineer and got in there and made it happen, man. It was fun. It was good times.
I got to tell you something too. Like, one of the things I admire about your band, and any band that does what you guys do, is you are a ministry first, band second.
Yeah.
What I like about that is there's not many. We're just talking about 90s bands, and in the 90s, Christian rock was very different. Not just for the sound, but I find that a lot of Christian bands in the 90s were definitely ministry first, band second. Nowadays, it's very, very different.
Yeah.
It's so you really only have like Skillet, Disciple, you guys. As far as like the hard rock bands, I can only and Fireflight's another one. There's not many bands who are ministry first. Oh, Cutlass, let's add Cutlass to that list. Who are ministry first, band second. Why do you think that is? Like, I guess I can tell you. I guess I understand why it is. We live in such a different society now, where everything's on social media, getting the likes, getting the follows, being popular. What do you see this happening? Like, what's your observations over the past 20 years?
Man, I grew up listening to the same music and going to the same concerts probably that you went to.
Oh, yeah.
I remember going to see bands play. I mean, not a lot of rock. I'm from Alabama, so there wasn't a lot of Christian rock coming through, but I know that those bands were ministry oriented for sure. But do you remember Mylon Lefevre and Broken Heart?
Yes.
Yeah. So Mylon used to come through Birmingham all the time, and I would go see them play. In Petra too, but I remember those guys, like if I went to those concerts, there was not a doubt in my mind that some point in the concert, the lead singer is going to sit down on the edge of the stage with a Bible and preach. I knew that.
Song, by the way, is Train Up in the Sky. Remember that song?
Was that
Marvin's my favorite song by him is Train Up in the Sky.
No, Train Up in the Sky. Yeah. I'm like old or newer school Mylon with like Crack the Sky.
Fantastic.
Crack the sky with me.
Yes. I love it.
Yeah, but man, I mean, you knew they were going to sit on the edge of the stage and minister. And man, I mean, those concerts were life-changing for me. Every time I went, it was like going to a revival, man. Like it was huge. And so that's where I grew up, going to those things. And so that's how the band that I was in before Seventh Day Slumber, that's when we were back in Alabama, we always did that. That's just what you do. You're a Christian band. You get up there, play your music, but then you share your heart, and your main goal is to see people give their life to Jesus. That's just, we didn't know any different, right? That's the only thing we knew. That was what separated us from the guys that were playing down the street in the bar, right? Yeah. And so I took pride in that. And then when I got into Seventh Day Slumber, Joseph told me before I went on the road with him, but he was just like, look, man, we're ministry. He literally said that same thing. He said, we're ministry first and music second.
Yeah.
And he said, we believe that, as long as we are putting the ministry first, that all the other stuff, all the accolades, the money, all that stuff will follow.
I love that.
Yeah. And he said that to me literally, like that was one of the first conversations I had to him about Seventh Day Slumber, whenever he knew that I was going to come out on the road. And so that was just, it wasn't like a motto, but that's the way we live our life. And Joseph, his story and how powerful it was. Mm-hmm. I mean, he shared that every night. We went on, this is important. This is how much it meant to us, okay? So we went on the Acquire the Fire tours. Have you guys ever heard of Acquire the
Fire? Run loose, baby. Run loose.
So we did those Acquire the Fire tours, and I may be giving away too much information, but the first year that we went on that tour, we're still a small band, upcoming band, and they didn't just say, hey, guys, we're going to pay you to come on this tour. Instead, they said, hey, guys, we want you to be part of this tour. This is how much it's going to cost you to play.
Yeah, I've heard stuff like that.
We paid $2,000 a night. $2,000 a night for a 15-minute set for
Gosh.
15 minutes. And we paid that $2,000 no matter how, if it was 3 times that we played in a weekend, which I think it was just 2. So it was 2 nights a week. So we were paying $4,000 a weekend to be part of that tour.
Wow.
And, we'd make it back with merch sales and stuff. But we only had 15 minutes. And so the normal band's going to get in there and say, we got 15 minutes. How many songs can we slap in here? Right. Instead, we would say, we're going to get in there and play 3 songs, and that's going to take up, 10 minutes of it. And then Joseph's going to speak for the last 5 minutes, or 3 to 5 minutes is what he did. And he shared his testimony in 3 to 5 minutes every single night. We dropped a song so he could do that. And we were like, we could, maybe playing one more song might make the people like that song a lot, and they want to go buy that record because of that. But he was like, we need to do, this is not why God called us to do this here. He called us to speak to these kids. So we did that, man. And it was a game changer for thousands of kids, right? That came to those things. The lives that were changed on that tour from him sharing his testimony. 18 years later, there's youth pastors, there's moms and dads that are like, man, I got saved at Acquire the Fire at your concert, man, when you guys shared your heart and gave an altar call. We give altar calls, man. There'd be thousands of kids coming to the front. So we took it back old school, the way we grew up going to concerts. And that's just the way we do it, man. And that's the only thing that has kept us where we wanted to continue to do it, right? Because there's not enough fulfillment in it, in the money for sure, and definitely not in the fame part of it. The fame is fake. It's only real for the second, it's only real for this moment right here. If you don't put out the next big album, you're not famous anymore. You're the guy that played, these guys were big back in those days. You're not famous, man. What is that? But who cares?
So what changed? So what changed? Because what happened? I know I don't want to get too political here, but the past 8 to 10 years, this country has changed. I really think Christianity has changed. The American Christianity is not true Christianity at all. To be honest with you, I have friends on Facebook who are pro-abortion. And I'm like, how can you be pro-abortion to be a Christian? Like, the American Christianity has really overtaken, and I really feel like it has really come into parts of the Christian music community.
I think that, that's a deep question that I can only speculate on. I'll tell you what I felt from the beginning until where it is now of my career. I think the more popular that Christian rock got, I think it was a slow thing that turned these Christian rock bands. And I don't think it was like one day this Christian rock band was like, well, I don't want to talk about Jesus because that's not cool. I don't really think that's what happened. What happened was radio changed. Okay. Radio was our way to, when there was radio stations playing Christian rock, we had an outlet, and we had a place. We used to play in Oklahoma, once a month, it seemed like. We were in Oklahoma all the time because they had a huge Christian rock station there that was killing it, right? Mm-hmm. As soon as that Christian rock station went away, or they switched to, contemporary, we started seeing our shows go way down. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, we played in Oklahoma once this year, and it was a terrible, nobody showed up. So whenever radio started getting rid of Christian rock and basically saying, hey, the soccer moms that are donating to our radio station don't listen to Christian rock. They listen to, Casting Crowns and not that there's nothing wrong with Casting Crowns.
Of course. I agree.
To the adult contemporary music only. They don't want to hear Christian rock on there. We're going to replace your program with more Casting Crowns. Then that outlet is gone for the band. So what does the band do? The band's like, well, look, they're not playing my normal stuff, but I have to make a living, right?
Yeah.
So the next thing they do is they start with a couple of songs on my album. And we've done that where we're like, I've got to write a couple of these songs have to be playable on Way FM. So I'm going to take, instead of using my big gigantic Marshall amp, I'm going to use this Vox amp and switch from my Les Paul over to a hollow body. And instead of Joseph singing with all the grit in his voice, he's going to clear it up, and that's how it starts. It starts with watering down what you're doing in order to make a living, right? And so bands, when they start changing what they're doing, I feel like they kind of lose. It's hard to remember where you started and why you started, and so you start putting more emphasis on that side of things and trying to fit the mold than you do go like doing what you came for.
Yeah.
And then in some cases, it like changing styles like that blew the band up, and they sold a lot more records doing it that way. And all of a sudden, they feel like they're the reason why this is happening,
Yeah.
And so, they don't take time to talk about. If I told you the bands that we toured with, or a band that said they would never tour, they would never bring us back out because Joseph shares his testimony and they just want him to play music. If I told you those bands, you would be upset, man, and you would be like, it's just
MXPX back in the day. I was watching an interview with Mike Herrera, the lead singer. He said he would get so frustrated because the Supertones would preach so much it would take time away from their set. And they ended up not touring with them anymore because they kept preaching too much.
Yeah. Well, the one thing that we always did, like, I understand, like, we never wanted to disrespect another band's time, so we would just always cut our own music. Like, if there were this is how much time you got, we wouldn't wait and give Joseph 3 minutes. We would make sure he had enough time to speak, because we tried our best to do an altar call at every show. And which, some people are like, well, you don't have to do an altar call. You can just get them to stand up or to raise their hands, or you don't have to do that at all. And that's true. God doesn't have to have you come down front for you to get your life, to turn you into a Christian. That's not the way it has to go. But there's something about stepping out, man, that makes it real, and stepping into that aisle and saying, you know what, dude, there's something's got to change. That right there is a life-changing moment. And that was a life-changing moment for me when I was growing up. So that's why we did it, was to give people that opportunity to say, you know what, I don't care who's watching, this has got to be real for me. And so they'll leave their seat and they'll come down and they'll get prayed with. They'll give information to our prayer team that's down there, whatever it is. But we would always leave enough time to where we didn't cut into the other band's time, because it's their show. If we were, now when we started headlining, we were like, who cares, man? We're going to take as much time as we want.
I love it. Go for it, RJ.
I came across you guys in, I think it was 04, 05 for a number of reasons. One was Caroline, the song. And then the second one was on the X albums. That's how I got into a lot of the Christian rock music that I was getting into, was through those X albums, X 2003, 4. And I think you guys were on 5 or 6 with Break Me, which was another really, really good song. And Oceans from the Rain ended up being one of the more popular songs there. So you guys came out with a string of hits over 2 albums. What was the decision, or what was behind the decision for your next album to be a worship album, which was Take Everything?
Yeah, so when we did that album that you're talking about, Shattered Life, that had all those songs on it that you just named, and that album was huge for us. I don't know how many albums it sold. I don't know, 150,000 albums or something like that. But it did really well for us. And usually, if people say, "Hey, I know you," it's because of one of the songs on that album, right? And we followed that up with Finally Awake, which was a lot heavier, a lot more raw and gritty, and it did really well too, you know. But after that, Cutlass had done a worship. I think Cutlass had done a worship album. No, Cutlass didn't do a worship album. Cutlass, Tooth and Nail asked them to do it, and I don't know if I should be sharing this, but this may not even be the truth, but this is what we were told, is that Cutlass turned them down and said, no, we don't want to do a worship album yet. And so the record label was like, hey, we need somebody to do a worship album. And we were like, dude, we loved playing worship. We would do it after the altar calls. While people were in the altar, we would always play some sort of worship. And so we loved it, you know, and sometimes we'd even do worship sets on Sunday mornings at church. So it's part of what we do already. But I was like, bro, what if we don't do it like worship? Like, let's do it our style. I'll write riffs. I'll build this thing out to where it's kick butt, man. And that's just what we did. Joseph let me pick the songs. He was like, hey, man, just find the songs that you feel like would be good for this. So I picked out all these songs, and you know, one of them was, I was like, one night we were driving the bus, or Joseph was driving the bus, and I was like, hey, man, this is one of these songs. I want you to hear it. This is a song I had never heard it before, but it was Inside Out by Hillsong. And I'd been listening to it over and over, you know, the live version of it. And I just loved it so much. And he was like, bro, this song is great. Let's do it. So we put it on the album, and that was the biggest song that was our biggest song of our career, was when we didn't even write. But it's amazing how many people thought we wrote that song, you know, but it's that album that it was on, man, it did really, really, really well. The worship album was our biggest selling album to date. And it's just part of who we are, man. We loved it. And doing those worship tours where you're playing those worship songs, you go from the people in the audience knowing 2 or 3 of the songs to every single song you play, every single person is singing it because they know it. You know, it's a big song. And for us, that was a game changer. We loved it. And
that's awesome.
Yeah. We followed it up with one. There's a whole nother story behind that, but that's how that came about.
I guess I was before it. So I asked James Mead this question. I also asked, I'm not sure if you know Joe Yerke from the Insiders. The old he was an old school ska band from the 90s. But
I remember the Insiders. I just don't know him. I never met him.
Yeah, super nice guy. But the one thing you guys all have in common is some of your biggest records were worship albums.
Yeah.
But you guys actually never started off as a worship band.
Yeah.
So my question to you is this, and before I ask the question, I was talking to James Mead. I'm not sure if you remember this, RJ, but James Mead's the guitarist of Cutlass, and I said to him, I'm like, is it hard for you? Because he's a hard rock guy. He's a metal guy at heart, hard rock guy. I said, is it hard for you to not write hard rock metal songs and just write worship songs? And he said to me, he's like, you know, I have to get out of myself, drop the pride, and understand what my purpose is. So my question to you is, do you want to be known as the worship Seventh Day Slumber, or do you want to be known as the hard rock slumber? What do you want your legacy to be as Seventh Day Slumber?
I don't want this to make you feel like your question's been cheapened or anything, but I don't want to be known for either one of those things.
Well, okay. So what do you want to be known for?
Seventh Day Slumbers we want to be remembered 20 years from now as the ministry band, the band that always shared, the band that changed people's lives because they talked about God from the stage. I want to be the guy. The music that we've created over the years, I'm proud of, for sure. I'm proud of the hardest rock song that I've ever written and recorded, to the Oceans from the Rain or the Caroline. Like, I'm proud of those. Those are all part of who we are. And I'm like, there was some people that are like, oh, your worship music's good, but we want the heavy stuff again. Well, I'm like, dude, some of the heaviest riffs I've ever written were on those worship albums. So, you know, you're just looking at it as a worship album. I'm looking at it as, this is some kick butt riffs, and there's worship music over the top of it, like songs that you all know. And for me, I'm proud of all those songs, man. And Seventh Day Slumber there's only been one record where we went into it and said, we are not going to write anything on this record that could be construed as anything but a rock song. Like, it's just going to be hard rock from beginning to end. And that was how we went into that album, We Are the Broken. Of course, there was one song on there that we put in there because it was so good. I thought we should have tried to sell the song to Casting Crowns, because I literally think it's maybe one of the best songs we've ever written. Trust in Me is on that album. If you haven't heard that song, Trust in Me, go check that out on our We Are the Broken album. But We Are the Broken, just slamming riffs from beginning to end. We never let up the gas except for that one song, and it sticks out like a sore thumb on the record. But that's the only album where we're like, we're not going to do this because they want hard rock because we've done these 2 worship albums. They want a hard rock album. So we gave it to them, and we just got too many fans on both sides. And the cool thing is that they're all like, hey man, your worship stuff's great. I want the rock stuff though. Your rock stuff's great, man, but I want the worship stuff. So we got 60 or 70-year-old people in our audience, and then there's, the 15-year-olds. It's all different, and we love it all. It's part of who we are. But man, people will remember some of these songs for years and years to come. But if you're that person that was gonna kill yourself, or you were thinking about ending it all because of what you were going through, and you go to a Seventh Day Slumber concert and you give over to Seventh Day Slumber after that altar call, you give them your pack of razor blades where you've been cutting, or you come up and you say, hey man, I was going to end it all, man. Here's the letter that I had written out, my suicide note. We've gotten those razor blades. We've gotten drugs from the people, we've been told by families that, hey, we hadn't been together. We came back for this concert, but our family's going to get back together. The husband's going to take back the wife. The wife's going to take back the husband.
Wow.
We've had those addicts that got clean, and now they're the worship leader, or they're the youth leader at the church that have come up to us. They've got kids that they're bringing to the concert because their life was changed. That lives forever. And that's what I want to be known as. And that is the difference, because man, music, there's certain bands that their songs are going to live forever. Mm-hmm. And I think our music's great. I love it. It's really good. It's life-changing. There's deep lyrics, but I can control one thing. I can tell people my story and how much God loves them, and it will make a difference in their life that's everlasting. Or I can spend all my time trying to make a song that maybe may make a difference and may last for 20 years or 10 years. And so for us, that's what we want to be known as.
I gotta tell you, I'm chatting with a pastor's kid right now, and he's like, man, everything Jeremy's saying is so theologically sound.
Yeah, you may have the best answer to that question so far. So
absolutely.
I said that, and the reason I prefaced it with I don't want this to sound like it's cheapening your question, because I think, like, I understand where James is coming. Like, what James said is actually, when you were saying that, what he said, I'm like, dude, I'm the same way. I'm a rocker. I'm a riff writer. Yeah. When I'm writing music, it's easy to do that. So easy, so fun. If I'm writing something that's not supposed to be like that, it's harder for me, because I'm like, what am I supposed to do? I'm a rock guitar player. I just play a chord and wait, So I get that, man. And I've always wanted people to respect, to speak more to, like, the other side of the coin. I really wanted to show that you guys understood where our band was at and how we want to be remembered. And I can speak for every single guy in the band that's how they want to be remembered. But on the other side of that, if you say that side's a given musically, I always want people to respect the rock, man, because we've been, that's how it started for me, man. And that's what's most natural for me, and what I love writing the most. I really do. All the other stuff, I love it. And I enjoy the different elements of, the hollow body guitars and the Vox. Like, I love those tones, those rich chords. But if you put 2 guitars and 2 different amps in front of me. I'm going to pick the Les Paul and a Marshall amp so I can freaking just lay down the boogie, bro. You know, I'm not going to go pick up the Vox amp and the hollow body guitar and start playing pretty chords. I'm a rocker. So I want people to love that side of it and appreciate that side of it. And that's what, you know, and really Seventh Day Slumber has always been known as a rock band. We've, to our detriment on the worship side and the contemporary side, whenever we've not been played on those radio stations, a lot of the times it was because, well, you guys are a rock band. So I assume that's kind of how we're already known and how we'll always be known.
The reason I love your answer is simply this: ministry. It always comes back to ministry for you guys, and I really appreciate that. And I will say this, and the reason I love everything you're saying is because I'm not gonna lie, I get frustrated when I see Christianity today be so watered down. And so even with the bands, it's almost like we had someone on the other day, and literally just before we went live, the person said, "I'm not a Christian anymore."
Oh, wow.
I was like, how? I remember saying, well, where do we go from here? But we ended up having a conversation.
Started rewriting your notes.
Yeah. But there's so many Christian artists today. Now, I'm not talking about artists that are in K-Love. I'm talking like Christian rock artists they're just either watered down or they're not really actively trying to be the ministers out there. They're just trying to be a positive band, and they might mention Jesus once in a while. Like, I can talk about Jesus all day. I love talking about Jesus, all the stuff he's done in my life. You know, my mom died this past June 28th. 3 months later, my dad found out he had stage 3 cancer. 2020 has been a wreck. You know, not to get too political, but I'm sure we're going to because it is part of the conversation. But even from a political standpoint, it's been a wonderful year. But you know something, the thing I want to say is that I believe God's in control of everything. You know what I mean? We serve a wonderful, awesome God. And it saddens me when I see people, especially in the Christian music industry, they're just a band who happens to be Christian, but you would never know unless you actually said, "Are you Christian?"
Yeah. Well, look, man, there's one thing that can speak for itself, and this next statement here is not meant to puff us Seventh Day Slumber up or anybody up.
Yeah.
Really just I want you to think, okay? Let's take Skillet out of the equation, because even though Skillet is a Christian rock band, they're not even on the same level as us anymore. They're like us normal Christian rock bands are just, they're on a different level than us. They're on a different plateau playing in a different playground now. Other than Skillet being gone, there's 2 bands that have never stopped that are still currently playing, that's been around since the beginning of 2000 or even before. And the 2 bands that you would consider headlining bands, that they're the only 2 bands that are out playing all the time, are Seventh Day Slumber and Disciple.
Yes.
There's only 2. Name one other Christian rock band that's touring that's what they do.
Yeah.
There's not.
There's not. We actually just had Josiah and Joey on maybe 2-3 weeks ago. Yeah,
it was right before the holidays, right?
And I want you to also take into consideration, now that I've pointed that out, and that's not I'm not putting any other bands down because they're out there doing their thing, they're working, but and I will die on this hill. The difference between those bands and Disciple and Seventh Day Slumber and everybody else, there's a huge, huge, huge difference, and it's not necessarily music. Okay, Seventh Day Slumber, Disciple both write awesome music. Disciple writes the best music, but there's other really great bands out there that write cool music. The difference is in the message and what they're trying to do.
Amen to that. Amen to that.
2 bands that are still headlining bands that are still able to play tours. They didn't just get there because of their good looks or their good music, okay? They did it because there was music second, not first. And God sustained it, okay? All of us guys in Seventh Day Slumber are doing way better than we should be, like, than a Christian band should be doing in this climate, right? You know, they just, like, we've all got homes and cars and don't have to have second jobs and stuff. Like, that's the blessing of God, because you're doing what he called you to do and not what you want to do, right? And man, I don't want to put any other bands down, and it's a shame. One of the things that we always have done in the past with other bands, and it's not a judgment thing. What it is we want them to come on tour with us because we want, first of all, we love their music. We bring out bands that we love their music, but we want them to see what it's like to minister at your concerts, and hopefully them take that into their own concerts and grow, you know, because right now there's usually like one or two big tours, you know, it's whatever tour Seventh Day Slumber is putting on, or whatever tour Disciples doing. That's it. Right. And if Disciples on the same tour with Seventh Day Slumber, then there's one rock tour that's happening. And it's awesome for the fans, but how awesome would it be if there was 5 or 6 bands like Seventh Day Slumber and Disciple that were out there doing those ministries still, or 10 bands or 15 bands? I just feel like the ministry is the key aspect in longevity. And without that, you better have a song that will last eternally, and it's a crapshoot whether or not that's going to happen. I've seen bands come and go over the 20 years. I mean, you have to. They put out one great album, and then the second album goes away. But, you know, they were the big hot thing at the moment, but they didn't take advantage of that opportunity to really do what they started. I feel like I'm hoping, I want to believe, maybe it's being naive, but I want to believe that all those bands started for the right reason. You know, just like me, it's like, God, you gave me this talent to do whatever, you know, I'm not super talented, but whatever I've got, I'm going to give it to you. Right. And God, take what I've got and make it huge. Because trust me, the guitar players that have come and gone out of the Christian rock industry, tons of them can play circles around me. All right. It's not about my talent. It's about what I was willing to give, you know, and if all I'm willing to give is my song, man, and my music, then I'm not giving enough, and that's never going to be enough. And the ministry is enough. The ministry means, God, I'm going to put my stuff on. The music stuff got me to this concert and pulled some people out. I'm going to give them you now, and that right there will keep them coming back.
That's good.
So that's my story, man. I'm sticking to it. I'm sorry if there's anybody in another Christian band that is not, doing that kind of ministry. You can call me and text me. I probably got your number, and you can be mad at me, but that's just the way it is.
So you mentioned it before. We've spoken to a number of bands that have really put God first in their music, and they're going on 15, 20 years of music, and that's a rare thing in music to be in a band, to have some of the same members in your band for that long. And obviously your band is one of them. You've been in the band now for 16, 17 years or so. It's
years now, man.
It's been a long time. And, we're coming up on this kind of crazy year in 2020 where a lot of bands haven't been able to tour and such. What's this year been like for you? And I know we're skipping over a ton of stuff for the sake of time here. You've come out with many great albums after that, but where are we now? What are you doing this year? How has this year been for you? And I know Mike has some questions about this year's too.
Well, it's important for me, for you guys to know that 2018, I don't know if you guys even know this, but I don't even tour with the band anymore. Right?
Yeah, we're aware. Yeah.
So like,
we were going to ask a little bit about that decision. I read your statement, and it's available, I think, on your Instagram or Twitter. How did you come to that decision to stop the touring part? You're still part of the band, I would assume, and you're still part of the music. But what was that decision like for you?
So in 2018, I have a studio. I'm sitting, in my studio right now, and Joseph started Rockfest Records, and he signed 2 or 3 of the artists that I'd produced. And, after he signed them, he was like, hey, you did EPs with them. We need to do a full album with them. So I need more songs. So 2018 started with, a conversation of me and Joseph at his house. And I said, bro, I'm swamped at the studio, and there is no way I'm going to finish these albums for you this year if I'm doing the City Rock Fest tour. And I was like, I don't know what to do. And I said, the only thing I can think of is having somebody fill in for me for some of the dates. And he was like, you think? And I was like, I don't know what else to do, man. I got to finish these albums. And I'm the only person that can do that. Any monkey with a guitar can play my parts on stage. So not to call the guys that are playing now monkeys, because they're way better guitar players than me. They're so much better than me. But I was like, I need to do this. So I stayed off the road, I went out and did the first couple of shows with them on that City Rock Fest tour to make sure the guy that was filling in was ready, and, I flew home and finished up one of the first albums that I was working on for the record label. And then after that, I had to not do the Summer Rock Fest tour because I was still working on the Monks the Giants record. And then I did the tour in the fall with them, the Small Town Worship tour. And my wife was pregnant with our 3rd child. And after being home, I toured for 18 years, right? And so after being home for that whole year and knowing that I've got a 3rd child on the way, my wife, she's always toured with me, right? She, after about 3 years of being on the road with Seventh Day Slumber, she came out on the road and she started selling merchandise for us. And so we've been together this whole time, right? But then after 10 years of marriage, we decided we're going to start having kids. So these kids now they're growing up in the tour bus. And I've got 2 of them, and they're both homeschooling on the tour bus, or trying to, and it's kind of distracting in the tour bus, right? You get parked at the venue, people are coming in and out because that's what you have to do. You're coming in and out and changing, you're doing stuff. It's your house. When you're on the road, that's your home, is the tour bus. So it was tough for my wife to drag the kids around the country and try to get them, homeschooled on the bus. And then it was also, they were old enough to start having friends when they were home from, tour, their friends across the street, the friends from other people we knew, that they would be lonely, kind of like, hey, I want to see so-and-so. And, at the end of that year, the baby was due in December. After that tour, the tour was amazing. Such a great tour. And I just had to make a decision. I was like, I've done this for 18 years on the road, and I feel like the band doesn't have to have me on the road to do what they need to do. There's a guy that's capable of playing my parts. He's a good guy, and that's all he wants to do is get on the road. He's 23 years old or something like that. That's all he wants to do. And me, I've got a family that I'm trying to raise, and I can't imagine my wife bringing the baby on the road and having to deal with the 2 kids and homeschool. And plus I'm an old man, so it's not easy to jump in and out of a tour bus and set up for a show and tear down. And I'm like, I just told Joseph, I was like, man, I feel like I'm never going to quit. Like, I can't quit. I am Seventh Day Slumber. Seventh Day Slumber is me. We're together. Like, I'm not quitting. We're related. So, but I just can't tour anymore. And he was like, bro, I 100% get it. So he was like, it's okay, man. It's okay. You don't have to worry about anything. If you'll just be part of the music and all that, and we'll take care of the touring, man. And so that was the decision I made in 2018, and it was the right decision. I miss the guys, hanging out with them on the bus and the camaraderie of that. But my kids have great relationships with their friends. My wife, it's easier for her to teach them. It's been easier on my body because I am old. I'm 42, and it's been easier for me to be home instead of doing that. But it was just the right decision to make at the time. And so I had the studio and the booking agency that were growing. And music industry, you guys know how it is and how it's not something that you're like, hey, I'm going to provide for my family for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm 42, and when you're 42 and you got 3 kids, one of the things you're thinking about is, what am I going to do am I ever going to be able to retire, or am I going to die? And not that retirement is the end all be all, but I just want to provide for my family, and God has been faithful to us and provided way more than what I ever deserve. Right. So, but I've also, for the last 10 years, had this booking agency. Since 2010, I had it, and to book Seventh Day Slumber. And then it kind of slowly built into other artists. And then the studios, I really just started the studio literally just for Seventh Day Slumber because I wanted to record our music. And it turned into recording and producing other artists. And so those 2 things are what I really thought, well, I'm just going to do these 2 things now. The booking agency. And so I did that hardcore in 2018 or 2019, and a lot of 2018 since I was home. I was having to make up for lost income from being on the road. But that's what I did, man. And then 2019 was a great year. I grew a lot, and was just trying to put all the pieces in line to grow the agency bigger. But it was still so much stress. I mean, having a booking agency is stressful. Having a Christian booking agency is even more stressful. Having a Christian rock agency is the most stressful, because you went from, this many people will book shows to this many people to this many people. Right. And so I'm like, man, this is my livelihood. This is how I'm making a living now. And it was just stressful because I know what it's like being on the road without concerts. If you book a 30-day tour and you're only playing 17 of those days, those other days you're not making any money. You're spending money. And which was Seventh Day Slumber was never a huge deal. We were going to be okay in our tour bus parked in a Walmart parking lot or something. But I was thinking about those other bands. What about the opening artists on those tours that were living out of a van, And I'd lose sleep. I would lose sleep over that stuff, thinking about them and thinking about their families. And there's just so much stress, bro. That's why I'm bald. But so that was really tough, man. And somewhere along the line in 2018, I got a job offer from an insurance company. And believe it or not, I didn't tell you guys this part of the story, but I got my license in Alabama before I moved to Nashville.
Really?
Yeah, I was going to quit music, right? Because I was in that band that I moved to Nashville with. But before we decided to move to Nashville, I was like, man, this is never going to go anywhere. I'm just playing these regional shows for 50 kids, and I'm not making any money. I need to get a real job. And so I got that job. And, man, within 2 weeks, it was probably within 2 weeks, I remember God speaking to me and was like, I'm not done with you yet on this music thing. You got to put your butt in gear. And so that's when I decided if I'm going to do this, I'm going all in. And that's when I moved to Nashville. And, but so my father, growing up, that's all my dad did, he's been an insurance agent my entire life. Right. And so I know how people love him and look at him for being the guy that helps them out. And he's just that guy in the community everybody loves, right?
Well, you've been pretty successful. I was looking at your Instagram. You were top producer for like September and November.
Yeah, and December. I just got that yesterday.
That's awesome.
Congratulations.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But it's, whenever they gave me that job offer, I was like, man, this is such a great opportunity for me to grow a business that, and the way they treated it is your own business. You can do whatever you want. If you don't sell, then you don't eat, But to me, I looked at it, I was like, this is a great opportunity doing something that will help people. But I didn't know about it. I was like, this is all I've ever known is music. That's all I've ever done since I was 14 was I'm going to be a music guy. I'm going to be in a band, tour. And then when it's over, I'm like, is that all am I going to be anybody anymore? So I wasn't ready to just like jump into that job. They offered it to me in 2018. I was like, well, I'm trying to build this booking agency because I want to keep my foot in the door here and I want to be part of this. That's all I know. And so I prayed about it. Me and my wife prayed about it for 2 years. 2 years we prayed about it. And every single night, God, please give me a sign, give me wisdom, tell me something. What am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to invest my time in this booking agency, or am I supposed to just do this insurance thing? Which one is it supposed to be, God? And it was just like crickets every night. But literally for 2 years, we prayed about that. Almost an entire 2 years. And I would talk to pastors about it and ask them their opinion. And it came down to, they were just like, look, your heart's right in this. Both opportunities are good. They both come with their own things. One of them, you're not going to be in the music industry anymore. One of them, you're going to be in the music industry, but you're going to be stressed out all the time. So, whatever you want to do, God's going to bless it. And, then 2020 came around and hit us all like a bag of bricks, and, man, I had probably 40 to 50 shows that canceled that I'd booked, and, sent a lot of money back to people. And, at that time I told Annie, my wife, I was like, I can control what I do. I know that I can control that I'm going to work my butt off for my family and I'm going to produce for my family. But I can't control if a band thinks I'm doing a good job, or I can't control if the band's putting out good enough music that people want to book them. I can't control if the band puts together a good tour or not. Like, I can't control those things. And those are all things that control my income. And so that's when I told her, I said, this is a prime example of 2020 just saying, as long as you're doing this, you're going to be, at this stage of your career, it's going to put you in a bad position, because every year right now for me counts. I got 3 kids.
Yeah. Speaking of 2020, before we end this, I want to ask you one more question.
Yeah, go for it. I know we've been on here for a while. Sorry for the long.
No worries, dude. I could talk all day. I love this. I love your heart. I love your dedication. Joseph is very political. I love it. Because I agree with everything he says. I think it's fantastic. RJ, maybe not so much. With me,
why are you throwing me under the bus like that? I'm already a non-Bride fan, and now
here's my thing.
That can be changed.
Yes,
it will. I will listen to it as soon as we are done here.
I personally agree with everything Joseph said. I think it's fantastic. I think he's spot on with everything he's saying. 2020 has been such it's been a terrible year. From a political standpoint, from a personal standpoint. As Christians, what are we supposed to do? Like, even the church is getting divided over politics. It's just been, it's funny. Like I was saying before, I see Christians who are like, there's stuff in the Bible that used to be so black and white.
Yeah.
And there still is black and white. But what's happening is Christians are full of this pride, and they're like, oh no, that's your sin. It's not a sin to me. Well, no, it's a sin to God. That's the sin.
Yeah.
What are we to do in this political disaster we're in?
I personally here's the way I feel about all of that, and I don't even have to get into political beliefs over this.
Yeah.
There's some people, I heard this on the radio actually today, so it's funny that you said this, but this guy on the radio is like, when is the last time somebody yelled at you about your opinion, and then them yelling at you about your opinion and telling you that it was wrong made you go, oh yeah, you're right, I'm wrong. It's just doesn't happen, right? Because it automatically, the tone sets that up for you to be defensive, right? And Joseph says what he says because he believes in it so strongly, and he's got the guts to say stuff that other people are too scared to say, right?
100%. I love it.
Because this is a time where if you speak up for your beliefs, if your beliefs are on one side or the other, you're going to get torn down, man. And by a bunch of keyboard warriors, right? Stuff that some people say stuff to him on the keyboard that they would never say to his face, especially if they've ever met him. But you know, he is basically making sure that people know, they don't forget that what is right and wrong, right? He is pointing out the black and white, and he's not afraid to say it. And what I think about people's beliefs and whether or not I think it's right or wrong, I have always been kind of I feel like you have to approach things in a way where you can tell people, hey, look, man, I don't have everything figured out, but I do love you and respect you, and I want to make sure that I want to hear you out. I'm going to tell you what I believe, and even if I don't believe what you believe, and I think that you're wrong about it, I may tell you that I think you're wrong about that, but it doesn't change the way I feel about you. And I had to say that to, and I won't name names, but somebody that was close to me came out of the closet and is gay and got married, and I mean somebody very close to me, right? And so I had
Jeremy just outed me out.
Yeah.
Jeremy just outed me
at that point to like tell them how wrong they are, right?
Yeah.
And I did tell them, I said, you know, hey, you know that I don't think that biblically, to me, it's black and white, that this is a wrong lifestyle. But there's also a bunch of stuff in the Bible that points the finger at me for doing stuff that I do. And so the main thing that I want you to know is, I want you to know, first of all, I don't think it's right the way you're living, but I also want you to know that I know that about myself, that I got my own problems, and that I love you, and that I'm here for you. And I don't ever want you to feel like you can't come to me with your problems or talk to me about stuff. And that set that from that conversation, there's never been a weird moment between me and that person. And I pray for them. And I hope that, that one day that they'll change that part of them, you know, or they'll come out of that and not be living in that sin. But there's also a lot of stuff in my own life that I hope that I get out of, you know, and I have to pray for about myself, you know. And it's really just all about, if you're gonna point out something in somebody else's life, I feel like you really got to be ready to look at your own in a hard way. And that's the thing that a lot of people just don't want to do. And I think that's the hardest part, is because it's so easy to just point out the other. I mean, some stuff is so wrong. The abortion issue, like you and I have the same beliefs there, and like, good grief. I mean, I'm sitting here thinking anybody that thinks it's okay to kill a baby, there's something wrong with you, man.
Absolutely.
There's something wrong with you. It doesn't mean I don't love you and I don't want to talk to you about it, but I feel like there's something wrong with you. Like, that's not okay, man. But I feel like it's a scary time, but it doesn't surprise me. Some people are like, I'm surprised at how crazy things have gotten. And I'm just like, what is it in the Bible that makes you think that things are going to keep just getting better and better and better and never get worse?
Yeah.
Like, my Bible ends the same way that yours does, you know, with the world going to hell in a handbasket. Like, that's old school saying. But like, this is just what happens, and this is what's going to happen in our world. And I think it's important that's why I'm proud of Joseph for saying, hey, look, don't don't settle for saying, oh, you can be like you are. It's okay. It's okay that you believe that. No, it's not okay that you believe that, but I love you and I'm not going to disrespect you, but it's wrong. And here's why, you know, and if you don't believe that, then that's fine. I'm not going to yell at you about it, but I need to let you know that this is how I feel and what I believe. And, man, I think it's important to just there's so many people now that are trying to walk in the middle.
You can't. It's impossible to walk in the middle and be a Christian. Like, not to cut you off, but I get so passionate about this because one of my closest friends is a atheist. And
not me.
Art is great, but my friend is an atheist, and he can't stand Christians. And we have
sometimes can't myself.
Yeah, well, me too. And I told him, I said, listen, just because you can't stand what that Christian did doesn't make we all like that. But my point is, we've had these conversations, and he likes my mindset. My mindset is this: I'm not going to be able to change your mind. Only God can change your mind, but I will speak truth. And if God uses the truth I say, that's great. And I know something. I just want to have a conversation. And I think Christians forget is that Jesus sat down and had conversations with people who didn't agree with him.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing I'm seeing is that, I personally, whether you like Trump or not, I don't, people who love Trump, they're kind of like, oh, I can't associate with people who like Biden or vice versa. Yes, you can. As Christians, we're not identified by our political stance. We're identified because Christ died for us.
Yeah. I will take that one further and say it's not only can you be associated with those Biden followers or those Trump followers, but you need to be. You need to be associated with them in a way where whenever they talk about you, it's not about, oh, that guy likes Trump. It's, man, that guy's a nice guy. I talk to him all the time. And, I think it all comes down to love, man. I mean, it's right there in the Bible, right?
Yes.
The Bible, the greatest of these is love. And so, I feel like if you can love somebody, no matter what their belief is and no matter what they're going through, and they can really, truly feel that, and you're not just saying that, then that speaks over any political belief. And those relationships that you have with people that have completely different belief sets than you, but they still talk to you all the time and they don't let that affect your friendship. I think that's a pretty special thing because that means you've gone the mile with them to say, look, man, I don't love you because of your political beliefs. I love you because you're a brother, you're a sister, and God created you just the same way he created me. And I'm not any better than you, I'm just not. In fact, I could be worse than you. There's a good chance of it if I'm talking,
I've told him, I said, I'm worse than you because I know what to do.
And there you go.
There is a ton that we could talk about. I think right now we are reaching the end of our.
Listen, we need to have you on again for part 2.
Part 2, man.
We've only gotten through 2 years of your life, so we have a lot more to talk about. But
we got 40 more years, baby, to go through.
Hey, look, I love you guys, man. I really appreciate what you do, and anytime I can get deeper, than just the surface conversation and interviews over the music side of things, I love it, man. So, I appreciate you, and anytime you guys want to do it, then we'll set it up again, and I'd love to be a part of it again. So I just thank you for letting me be, man.
Thank you. It's been awesome. As you've heard before, this is probably our 7th or 8th one. We've been able to speak to some really cool people and really different people too. We've had conversations with people that it was mainly about the music. We've had conversations that was mainly about the faith. We've had a little bit of both. We've had really good stories, and this conversation was one of those, and I really appreciate it. It's been really good hearing the stories behind the music a little bit, and kind of getting to know who these people are. For me, whenever I went to concerts or whenever I went to things and heard stories, I wanted to hear the music music more because I knew who the people were now. So like you have been doing for the last 16, 17, 18 years, is telling your story on the road. I think that's, like you said, is what's going to make the fans and hear the word more than the music ever will, even though the music is great. So thank you for coming on again, and thank you guys for listening to the 4-7 podcast. We will definitely have you on again if you'll have time for us. And thank you for joining us.
Absolutely.
Once we go, we're going to end the live in a second here, but once we do, if you don't mind hanging on a second, and we'll say goodbye.
Yeah, man.
Thank you for joining us. Have a good day.